All right, let's dive into a story that's been unfolding for nearly 500 million years. It is an absolutely epic tale. The story of the very first creatures with backbones, their conquest of the water, then the land, and, well, their very precarious place in the world today.
You know, our whole story really starts with this sense of pure wonder. I mean, just think about that for a second. How on earth do they do it? This almost magical ability to navigate thousands of miles back to the exact spot where they were born, it's just one of the incredible mysteries we're going to get into. It really sets the stage for a journey into a world that feels so alien, but is also deeply, deeply connected to our own.
So let's rewind the clock, and I mean way back. What was the world actually like for the very first fish? Well, to put it simply, it was a world without bite.
So meet the pioneers, creatures like pteraspis. And honestly, they look more like armored torpedoes than any fish you'd recognize today. They had this heavy shield covering their heads for protection. But here's the key. They had no jaws to bite with, no paired fins to steer properly. They were basically just sucking up tiny organisms from the bottom of the sea.
And then, everything changed. The single greatest innovation in the history of vertebrates happened: the jaw. Before this, fish were pretty passive. They were armored prey. But getting a jawbone, that turned them into active, fearsome predators. This wasn't just a small upgrade. It was a total revolution. It completely rewrote the rules of life in the ocean.
And this one innovation just set off a massive chain reaction. The jaw led to absolute giants like the armored Dunkleosteus that ruled the Devonian period. It pushed evolution forward, eventually giving rise to fish with lungs, and ultimately to the incredible, mind-boggling diversity of fish that fill our planet's waters today.
Okay, so they had jaws, big deal, right? But to truly conquer the water, fish needed a whole toolkit of biological gadgets. So let's take a look at how they became such perfect masters of their environment.
Have you ever actually wondered about this? You see a fish in a tank, and it's just hanging there, perfectly still, right in the middle of the water. It's not sinking, it's not floating up. It feels like magic, but it's actually a brilliant little piece of biological engineering.
The secret is something called the swim bladder. The easiest way to think about it is like a built-in scuba BCD, a buoyancy control device. It's basically a gas-filled balloon inside the fish that it can inflate or deflate whenever it wants. And here's how it works. It's so elegant. To go up, a special gland literally pulls gas out of the fish's bloodstream and pumps it into the bladder, which makes the fish lighter. To go down, a little valve opens, releases that gas back into the blood, and the fish gets heavier. This lets them achieve what's called neutral buoyancy, and it saves them a massive amount of energy.
Now, what happens when you combine that perfect buoyancy control with a super hydrodynamic body? Well, you get some pretty astonishing results. Look at this number. That is the top speed of the sailfish, the fastest fish in the ocean. It's just a perfect example of evolution creating an absolute masterpiece of design for power and speed in the water.
So for millions and millions of years, the water was where all the action was. But then, a few pioneers had a pretty radical thought. What if life wasn't just aquatic?
And the motivation here was simple: survival. During the Devonian period, the climate was all over the place. You'd have these long droughts that would dry up lakes and rivers. For a special group of fish, the lobe-fin fish, their weird, fleshy, sturdy fins became a literal lifeline. They could use them to drag themselves from a shrinking muddy pond to a deeper one.
And what's so cool is that the fossil record tells this story perfectly. You can literally see the progression. First, you find fossils like Eusthenopteron, and you see that its fin already has the same basic bone structure as our own arms. Then came Tiktaalik, the famous fishapod that could actually prop itself up. And this trail leads directly to creatures like Acanthostega, which had real, distinct legs and toes. The blueprint for every land animal on Earth was drawn right here. So, this huge leap onto land gave rise to the amphibians, the descendants of those very first explorers. And their name says it all. Amphibian literally means both lives, which is a perfect nod to their mastery of both water and land.
Okay, so let's settle the age-old question. What's the real difference between a frog and a toad? Well, it really all comes down to their lifestyle adaptations. Frogs are built for the water, right? They've got smooth skin, long legs for big jumps, and webbed feet for swimming. Toads, on the other hand, are adapted for life on land, with that bumpy, drier skin and shorter, sturdier legs made for walking, not leaping.
And if you really want to see their double life in action, look no further than metamorphosis. It is one of the most dramatic, unbelievable transformations in the entire animal kingdom. You start as a creature that is basically a fish, a tadpole with gills and a tail, and it completely rebuilds its own body to become a four-legged, air-breathing adult. It's like living through your entire evolutionary history in a single lifetime. It's just wild.
So, we've just traveled across 470 million years of history, from the first jawless fish all the way to a modern frog. But this ancient, epic story has reached a very critical, very modern chapter. We have to ask, what is happening to them right now?
And the threats they're facing are just immense, and they're coming from all sides. For fish, industrial-scale fishing is literally emptying our oceans. For both fish and amphibians, the destruction of their habitats, from polluted rivers to drained wetlands, is absolutely catastrophic. And if that wasn't enough, there's a devastating fungal disease, basically an amphibian pandemic, that is wiping out entire populations all over the world.
All of those pressures, they lead to this one staggering number. 1/3 of all known amphibian species on the entire planet are currently endangered. Let that sink in. Scientists are calling this a mass extinction event, on a scale that's comparable to the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs.
I mean, it is just an incredible legacy. A story of revolution, of innovation, of survival against all odds that led to the world that we know. And after nearly 500 million years, their fate, for the first time ever, rests entirely in our hands. So the real question is, what's the next chapter of their story going to look like?